Lawyers of Reddit, what was your hold it moment where you knew you would win? Hi Reddit guys, subscribe now, or I will leak your secrets. It was my third month of practice. I was in family law at the time, representing mum in a petition for a restraining order against boyfriend, dad. At issue in the broader case was child visitation, custody, support etc. But today's hearing was just on the RO. We had pretty good facts, but it was mostly based on testimony of the parties. My client was way more reputable as a witness, so I was feeling confident. 10 minutes before the hearing, my client shows up. I give her a last minute prep on what to expect and then she says I'm glad I'm going through with this. I can't deal with it anymore and he's just getting worse. To top it off, he left me a drunken, ranting voicemail on Saturday. You have your phone with you? Yes. We play the voicemail and it's a full 2 minutes of ex-boyfriend screaming it like I should have freaking killed you when we were together. You were always such a bitch. I hope you burn to death in a fire. I didn't have time to ask her why the frick she hadn't said anything to me about the voicemail before the bailiff called our case. We sit. The judge asks if either side has additional evidence, and I ask for permission to play the voicemail. Ex-boyfriend, who didn't have an attorney, didn't object, so I played the whole nasty 2-minute rant in open court. Judge goes, we're going to take a brief recess before I issue my ruling. If the parties want to meet and confer in the hall, they are welcome to. Boyfriend knew he was fricked. We settled the whole damn case then and there. My client got a wish list in terms of custody, supervised visitation, child support, plus the restraining order, to boot. In court for a restraining order, my ex was adamant he had not nearly killed our daughter and that he did not in fact break into my house and point a gun at me the week prior. I was just a liar who wanted to keep his child away. When told I was asking for a full indefinite order, which is zero contact ever, he said to his lawyer, if this itch gets that order, I'm going back to her house and I won't fail this time. Sadly for him, his microphone was still on. Whoa, so did the judge hear it? I worked on a case involving defective processors. In discovery we got emails from the defendant's engineers that had worked on the processors. They were in an Asian country, but the emails were in English, because they were going to US executives. One of the more senior engineers basically laid out the exact defect we were suing over, explaining what the problem was and why it was their fault, and finishing with this is big problem, we ship crap to customer. Needless to say we hit them over the head with that in mediation, and they settled shortly after. I trapped a defendant pretty badly one time. He testified in a depo he had a green arrow for his left turn and that my client ran the red. Unfortunately for him, the additional turn lane arrow was installed 2 months after the wreck. Case settled for policy limits a week later. Not a court case, but your story reminds me of an accident I was a passenger in. A woman illegally turned at an intersection. There was a sign for turn on arrow only, and hit the car I was in as we were crossing through. We pulled into a nearby parking lot and were exchanging information. The woman was freaking out and in tears and me and the driver were just standing there uncomfortable. An uninvolved person saw that and apparently seeing the woman crying and 2 big guys there decided that meant we were bullying her. She comes up and starts screaming at the driver and says she's a witness and it's all his fault for running a green light, aka driving through the intersection. Reminds me of the time I was going through a green light and nearly boned a guy. They also had a green light. Both sides were green. Made me realize traffic lights aren't infallible, lol. I reported that to the city, but never got a response. I'm a court reporter who mostly does pre-trial depositions, and I'd like to think by this point I'm pretty good at reading people. I did this one car accident case that actually took place at an intersection a few blocks away from where I used to live, so I was familiar with it. Both parties were nice middle-aged ladies. One was driving north, south and the other was driving east-west, and both of them swore they had the green light. Luckily, no one was seriously injured, but damn, I could not tell who was telling the truth and who was lying. I guess it's possible, though unlikely, that the light malfunctioned and they did both have the green, but like I said, I used to live nearby, and I must have driven through that intersection hundreds of times without any issues. It's also possible one of them just wasn't aware enough of the situation and legitimately thought they had a green light when they didn't. I was reviewing the transcript of an interview with a child. The child made incriminating statements against my client. At one point, when discussing the allegations, the child used an odd word, but I didn't think much of it. A few days later, I was watching a video of the child interacting with their grandmother, who hates my client, from about a week before that interview. The grandmother used the exact same odd word in the exact context the child later used it. At that moment, it became clear that child had been coached. It was the first real aha moment of my career. My blood boils when people coach children and use them in this way. You are a disgusting pose to use a child like this. No one ever knows if a child is lying or telling the truth moving forward, which makes them so vulnerable. And the kid themselves just is destroyed by the lie. Sometimes they start to believe the lie. People suck. My mom made me write a bunch of made up stuff about my dad when I was 8 years old. Yeah, it was fricked up. Almost forgot about that one. Holy cow folks, so many comments. My client has been keeping her son away from the father because the father has a new child. She is concerned that her son will act violently towards the new child and she could be held liable. Judge, that's not even a defense. Man, this sounds like a really sad family situation for the older half-brother. Sounds like his mum is pissed that his dad has moved on, so she refuses to cooperate and wants her kid to hate his dad and the new baby. But what freaking attorney was like, okay, let's go to court with this. No matter how ridiculous, there's always an attorney that will go for it. What do you call someone who barely passed the bar? An attorney. Not a lawyer, but I played one in small claims court. My lease had an exit clause that said if I fronted 2 months' rent, they would work to lease my place and return anything unused. I checked with the office ahead of time. They ensured me there was a waiting list, so I gave them the 2 months and moved. They never returned a dime. I talked to the new tenant and confirmed they moved in a week later. In court, the judge was commenting on how he didn't see anything explicitly saying they would return any unused rent, even though that intent was stated to me a few times. Dumbo from the leasing office piped in with, "Your Honor, in almost every case we can return some money, but in this case we didn't have a tenant in the 2 months after he left." So, she gave the case back to me and I presented the affidavit from the new tenant confirming the move-in date. Judge awarded me double what they owed. Turns out leasing office numbers 1 and 2 thought they could lie to me and return my excess rent money to themselves. Turns out leasing office numbers 1 and 2 thought they could lie to me and return my excess rent money to themselves. Isn't that embezzlement? I hope they were charged. It is. I was sued for a car crash. While the plaintiff was on the stand, she began recounting the event and everyone realized it was a completely different crash. Different cars involved, different time of day, everything. Upon cross-examination, she revealed that she had 4 lawsuits running concurrently and couldn't keep them all straight. The jury foreman looked at me and rolled his eyes. Her eventual payout, paid by my insurance co., was a pittance, less than the initial settlement offer before the whole thing went to trial. Her lawyer was shaking with anger when court adjourned. He was one of those "we don't get paid unless we get money for you guys," so he lost a lot of money on that one. Okay, so I was drafting a defense to an accident case statement of claim, and when I read through it, all the details were wrong. They got the insurers, our client, wrong, the wrong license plate, driver, date, time. Everything was wrong. So I told my clerk to call their firm up to inform them of their mistake. When she got patched through to the lawyer screamed down the phone and left my clerk in tears. Said that the lawyer don't have time to be speaking to clerks and to get a real lawyer to call them back. That pissed us off. So we went along with it. Went for dismissal and got filing fees. Overall didn't cost our client a cent. That's amazing. The haughty frick really screwed himself on that one. I feel bad for your clerk though. No one deserves to be disrespected like that. Jesus, how does she find the time to get into 4 different car accidents all so bad they result in lawsuits? Her husband helped. I think it was their retirement plan. Your Honor, I have screenshots. It wasn't at trial, but during a deposition on a case where 2 former employees decided to start their own company in a very niche market, but decided to make their plans on company laptops they unsuccessfully tried to break. One of the defendants was the one being deposed. She said she answered to a higher power than the company. When pressed on what that meant, she said herself, that got reused prominently at trial. She said she answered to a higher power. It was me, Austin. It was me all along. AW son of a h. I'm not a lawyer, but I took my old landlord to court when I was in college. They stole my security deposit over bullet. They claimed I trashed the place, not knowing that I took pictures and video when I moved in and out. Their evidence was a VHS quality recording of going through a perfectly clean apartment in better condition than it was when I moved in. But then they opened up the top of the stove and found a single piece of elbow macaroni under it, holding up triumphantly. That was the crux of their defense. The judge was not amused and I got all my money back plus my lawyer fees and the filing fee. She then fought against her own lawyer to avoid paying him. A-hole. We managed to get a relative out of paying for damages that the landlord videoed, photographed after she moved out, claiming the various marks, dings, etc. were hers. I asked how long this policy of taking video evidence on move out had been in place, and the landlord replied at least a decade. She dropped all claims to my relative's deposit when I asked her to produce the videos, photos when the previous tenant had left. Okay Reddit guys, subscribe now, or I will leak your secrets.